All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, we are talking about Path of Daggers, and we are going to hopefully finish it out today.
Yeah, as we were wrapping up, for anyone who's following along, yes, we're wearing the same clothes because we just recorded our Wednesday episode, and Sam's going to be on the road, so we're doing our Wheel of Time now, so we can get that up, giggity. Um, it just dawned on me. We're going to finish this up today, and then we'll get to Winter's Heart, one of my favorites. And then it'll probably be about time to watch the series, season
Oh
2.
yeah, yep.
And 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 then I'll have to decide. But all right, we just talked about me being less cynical. Maybe on the bright side, maybe season 2 will let me appreciate Crossroads of Twilight more, when it's generally one of my least favorites.
uh, I mean, they have an official trailer now. We could open up with that.
Was that awfulness that we watched way back just like the
That
teaser?
was the teaser. Yeah,
Oh, sweet Jeebus.
yeah, because there's a lot of things in this trailer that it we could actually say, oh, this is going to happen now based on what we've seen in the books.
Well, I know when we were looking things up previously, and we were looking things up and talking about it, and I noticed on either one of the teasers or one of the articles the tagline of "The Hunt Begins." I'm still wondering if it's going to be all Great Hunt or if they're going to incorporate some Dragon Reborn in it.
Uh, yeah, stuff and things. All right, so we will get to the book, but here's the trailer.
Everyone has a choice.
I do like the White Tower.
And every choice has a consequence.
I'm bigger than my body.
We didn't defeat the Dark One. We set him free.
I'm meaner than my demons.
No
Wait,
one-
wait.
Which part? Wait, there was like three things that happened when you started
I
saying
know. I know. All right. I mean, first of all, the last thing why the hell is Rand's head shaved? But I digress. Um, uh, let,
wait. So
let's,
so men
let's,
can't grab his hair later, as we get to in this section
giggity.
of the book.
Um, something, this is so infuriating. So, I don't know, of the three people that actually watch this, I don't know if I'm going to trigger any of you, but I hated the Snyderverse, the DC movie universe. And it was infuriating when I actually watched Man of Steel, because that cast was phenomenal and they did a great job. And uh my first thought with that narration from Moraine was, well, my first thought was, oh God, that's right, she's been stilled or burnt out or whatever. Um, she's too
So
emotional.
so
But
I've heard in the spheres that she's shielded.
okay, well, that could make sense. That actually that actually could be taking something from farther down and bringing it in.
Yeah, but they could have been more clear about it. She
But
could have said, "Land, he shielded me." That would have been actually something Lan would
so
have gotten, and then the fans would have gotten. And
so I assume then the idea is that he did to her what Lanfear does to Asmodean in the book, that ties off a shield.
yeah, maybe not that one, because remember he could still trickle the power.
Yeah. Oh,
Maybe
true,
like
true.
what Moghedian does to, I think, Leandrin in the books, where she ties it off so thick that it's going to take years for Leandrin to get out of
To
it.
unravel it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's possibility. There could also be a possibility that, I guess, if he used the true power instead of the one power, it would be harder for her to tell. It would be maybe more difficult for her to tell, because the problem with a shield is you're shielded. because you can push against it.
As they
there's-
showed with Logain earlier.
Yes, you can push against it, and I mean, just a couple books ago, we spent a lot of time in Lord of Chaos. Jordan goes into a lot of detail of the physical feeling of being shielded, because we get a lot of point of view of Rand while he's shielded. All right, but credit where it's due. Something that's so infuriating about this, and I recognize her face, but she's one of those, oh, I know that person from somewhere actors. She's actually doing a really good job of, I've referenced this before, of critical drinkers, why modern movies suck, video comparing and contrasting the Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, with Star Trek Into Darkness, the Jar Jar Abrams, ripoff of it, and the way at the end of Wrath of Khan, Shatner is just kind of, shockingly, because he's known for chewing the scenery, he's holding it in, because he's he's an admiral, by golly, and he's a professional, but this was also his friend, so there's just this little bit of cracking in his voice, but otherwise he's like holding it all in. The actress is doing a great job of letting you hear the emotion that she's hurting, but still being strong, because Moiraine is a freaking rock. I mean, she's a freaking automaton when it comes to, this is what I am, this is my goal, this is what I'm doing, and I'm not scared of anything or anyone, even if deep down I'm petrified of them. Okay, but then we get to
they had to reverse course with that with Lan. This is again why modern movies suck, is because she's doing the strong thing and we're commending the actress, but they didn't want to do the same for the dude.
Yep.
They couldn't do the same for the dude because that's just toxic.
So
but let's blow through this, because I didn't want to make it the main part of the whole show.
Well,
here.
but the other thing where I had you stop there was, we didn't defeat the Dark One, we freed him. Moraine's smarter than that, you morons. But I don't know that the writers are. Maybe the writers think that's, smart writing, but you're idiots. Continue.
Yeah. That I didn't quite get.
Together we face the impossible. But now in our separate corners of the world.
I assume that was Lanfear.
Yeah, and a lot of people on Reddit were talking about how that was going to be Elaida, and I'm like, no, that doesn't seem right. And then I saw this trailer, and I'm like, that's definitely Selene. That's definitely Lanfear.
Protecting Rand, guiding him, that is the only thing that matters. You can't control him.
You know you have something inside you. Something that calls for blood.
I want to know how to control it.
The last battle's coming.
Wait, that was Logain, wasn't it?
Yeah. Okay, so after we finish this whole thing, I got two theories on characters. This is definitely Turok right here, which actually doesn't look too bad when they show him here.
Except for that, doesn't he have half his head shaved? Or was that his attendant?
If you look very carefully, let me blow this up. He has half of his head shaved.
Oh, but I thought he had long hair on the.
Yeah, he's
You are
supposed
right,
to,
though.
but he does only have half of his head
Interesting.
shaved. But yeah, they could have gave him half a head of hair instead of stubble. But
Whatever.
yeah.
The whole world will be ours.
Oh no, those were scars.
If our friends are in trouble, why would I ever stay here?
You have no conception of the power they wield.
You can't do this by yourself.
There are many paths to walk through the night. It's not always the most powerful who write history. It's the ones who survive.
I'm tired of being a spoke in the wheel.
You're a spoke, boy. You are the water that turns the wheel itself.
Yeah. Okay, so two things. I think at this point I could say with a little bit of certainty. A lot of people were like, "Oh, this is going to be Elaida," or "Oh, this is going to be da da da." No, I think they actually combined two characters here, or three, four characters into two. I think Tame and Logain are one, because notice they were talking as if they were like kind of a mentorship role there, and Elaida and Leandrin are one.
That changes a few things. Oh, geez. I could see that, and that would some of the things we ranted about that seemed like little things in the first season, and the reason we ranted about them is because, I mean, this is the 8th book, it's freaking huge, like all of them. You're borrowing trouble you don't have to borrow. I could see them
unless
doing,
you don't, unless you're going season to season and you don't know if you're going to be continued.
Logain and Taim being the same person is a big effing deal and changes a ton.
Considering in the Logain arc, Taim is his antagonist.
I mean, we're about to get to that. The extra
Yeah.
bit.
Oh, sorry, that was spoilers.
No, here just in a chapter is we're going to see that. We felt, oh, hey, Logain's back. And yeah, that's actually fortuitous because you see right from the get-go that Logain and Tame do not get along at all. And of course, Leandrin and Elaida. Okay, well, temperamentally, you can kind of see it, but then again, as we've talked about, and it's at this point, I think it's non-spoiler to say that Elaida isn't a black Huzzah, she's just a bitch.
Yeah. So we've had whole episodes on this, how Elaida's the worst, but she's not black.
Yeah, and you're still at this point, you can be thinking that, you can be holding on to that, but it's becoming
Elaida
more and more
is
clear.
the Aes Sedai representation of Eredal,
Mm,
the human evil.
that is a good way to think about her. The human evil in its arrogance, because that was what really doomed Ered Hall, was the arrogance that we are the only true foes of the dark. We're the real.
Well, not only that, the deeper part of that is, and everybody else is against us.
Yes. The if you are not with us, you are against us, in that hard line. Is Elias supposed to be in this season? Have you seen the casting?
Elias, they talked about it, but I haven't seen a person cast as him.
Because there was some voiceover there with some scenes of Perrin.
Ingtar is in it. I'm trying to think of the guy characters that were added. He's the only one I can think of that I can remember was actually added, other than the antagonist like Turok. And Turok's not even on IMDb. I saw him first in the trailer.
Oh boy. Well, gee, I can't wait.
Well, we're supposed to get Varen, so that's fun.
So Rand was in the tower. So apparently, and instead of Sawan and Aes Sedai going to Shinar, somehow they're going to have that confrontation in the tower. How do you do that without screwing up so much?
Know who we didn't see at all in the trailer there?
Loyal.
Matt.
No, I think we briefly saw a new Matt.
Oh, we briefly saw him. I missed it.
I think so.
Now the bloody scenes and the weird things that didn't seem.
Yeah,
to
what
make
was
sense?
that with the person with the girl?
I bet you.
Like
I bet
the chick
you
from the ring with her hands all bloody. What the hell?
I bet you that's Nynaeve in the Turing Grail.
That's her testing.
In her testing, yeah.
Because
because they're so like Salvador Dali and just off kilter.
Yes, because you see Egwene stumbling out of what looked like the testing. But just the idiocy of the production here of the whole point of how Amazon Studios got going here is supposedly Bezos said, I want my Game of Thrones. And the geniuses there said, oh, well, you know what? We could double up Game of Thrones because we'll have the family friendly version, which is the Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power. And then we'll have the adult version. You're supposed to go through the test naked. There was your chance for nudity, you morons, if you're trying to get clicks, if you're trying to get eyeballs, and you can't even do that right.
Yeah, especially if you're going for this young amateur cast, because you got all the leverage. Like, you want to be on the big screen, you got to take that shirt off, honey. Or maybe they're just all sensitive about after the Weinstein stuff, but
could be. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Game of Thrones did it after the Weinstein stuff, so
we didn't do this on purpose, I swear, but where we left off last time, we are on chapter 25, the title of which is An Unwelcome Return. Yes. Thank you, Amazon, you jerks. An unwelcome return indeed.
I'm still confused about the giant wheel he's chained to in the middle of nowhere.
I am quite certain that what is going on there are his dreams with Ishi. That's all metaphor and that's in the dream world, because there's a line in there about being bound to the wheel.
I'm saying you're giving them a lot of credit, but if you're right, then that's actually a decent way of doing something like that.
And that is one of Ishi's modes of manipulation for Rand, is you're just a tool of the pattern. You know, you look at me as evil, but I'm actually free and I'm offering you real freedom. And if you stay where you are as the dragon, you're just a tool of the wheel. You're bound to the wheel, bound to the pattern. And the actor who was Ishi, he played that part well, but they never gave him a chance to be scary, Ishamael. That, yes, he is seductive. He is erudite in his trying to banter with Rand, his trying to turn Rand, but he's also scary as hell.
Well, you could have. I mean, I'm thinking like Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
He was exactly evil yet charming.
It is doable. It has been done. The writers didn't give this guy enough to work with.
Al Pacino in The Devil's Advocate. No, he's overacting is the problem. And that's the way it is with a lot of these young, a lot of these come from stage acting. They're young, they come from stage acting, and they're stage acting in front of a camera, and it comes across completely different. All right, so we're back with Elaida.
Yes.
Speaking of the devil.
Yep. So, yeah, Alviarin has been gone for a while, which has allowed Elaida to reassert her control. My only real thought about this is, well, one, it goes on a little too long for my taste, but it is a great example of bullies. I mean, this is Jordan writing a bully perfectly. That she did, you know, and I hadn't thought about it in these terms either, but this is Jordan doing double duty again with more than one thing happening at once. And the last thing we saw was Rand's plans falling apart in the Battle of the Wilderness there. And the whole theme of this book has been to focus in on something that's already been hinted at, which is what Cadsuane and what is wrong with my brain?
Aurelia?
Aurelia. Because I kept Sawan Sanche just got stuck in my head, and that was, I couldn't think of any other S names than that. And it's probably that stupid trailer. So
my beef with Swan in that show is we're talking about ageless face and the Moiraine they got. Okay, we can say that. Swan looks old. I'm sorry. I didn't look up the age of the actor, but she just looks old.
Well, they seem to have made the conscious choice of not bother because it would be too much technical work to make it happen. Because in the oh, for crying out loud, I can't remember if we ranted about this or not, but when when Moraine is in the sauna, like the only set of boobs you see are this really old lady's saggy boobs, this really old gray-haired lady's saggy boobs. It's like so there are some like gray-haired, wrinkly Aes Sedai. So they've just made the choice of, yeah, we're just not going to bother with the ageless look because it's just,
Well, it says
it can't be
ageless face. It
translated.
never says anything about lack of saggy boobs. I mean, gravity's still
Fair.
still gravity.
Eh,
They don't really have nice bras, you know.
I wonder how that would. No, we're going to get sidetracked here. We're going to get sidetracked here. So the kind of the theme of the book is strong versus hard. And that's
Mhm.
what Elaida it just typifies is she is hard. She is brittle. So with Alviarin gone, she turns back into the bully, and she's able to slam her iron fist on the table of this is the way it's going to be. Well, then Alviarin shows back up, and now all of a sudden the bully just breaks because she's brittle, and it's now she's the bullied. And Alviarin is no, this won't work at all.
Now we have to rewind a little bit too. I think part of it is her first dealing with Alviarin. She makes some sort of semi-oath to kind of follow her lead. And because as we're not spoiling, Elaida's the worst, but she's not a Black Ajah. If she makes a
thought of
semi-oath,
that before.
if she makes a semi-oath, she has set herself to be bullied
That
because
was
she cannot defend herself.
that was Jordan's clue that no, she's not dark. And I'd never noticed that before, of that kind of oath she gives to Alviarin, that I'll follow you and you protect me from these blunders I've made. Is, yeah, she wouldn't follow that if she was actually dark at all. She would have to.
Just like we talked about Shiriam in the last one. The reason why she's the only happy one of the ones that swore oaths is because she doesn't have to follow it.
All right. So, is there any other?
I mean, yeah, just look at the way Alviarin talks to her. You sound as if you need to be reminded of the truth of that. Suppose I've left you too long. That's not something you say without complete confidence that someone is not going to bite back.
Yeah. Speaking of biting back, I like the way the chapter ends because it's, again, doing more than one thing. So there's the last paragraph of this chapter is Jordan reminding us that these are human characters, even the Forsaken. But Alviarin is filing away this tidbit in her mind. Because even Masana is human. She doesn't know everything. So let me file this away and maybe it can. Okay, well, we're all blind to our own faults. Alviarin, you're human too. And you think you've got Elaida under your thumb, but she's doing stuff.
Yeah. And obviously you didn't learn your lesson that unless you're actually there ordering around, those oaths only go so far.
Exactly.
And but you made a point about the Forsaken, that being human. I actually think one of Jordan's themes has been that humanity is flawed, and the Forsaken are embodiments of these certain flaws. And I don't know which one I would attribute to Masana, but definitely someone like Samael would be pride, and Demandred would be jealousy, or envy. I would say envy with him, jealousy with
envy. Yeah,
jealousy with Lanfear. They're all power hungry, and their main caricatured flaw is their root to that is why they went to the Dark One, to get that power.
All right. Well, then the next chapter goes right into the, hey, Alviarin, maybe you should, check your own arrogance, because, we will see how it plays out when it plays out. But Elaida set into motion to hunt out Alviarin and her cronies. And that's, again, very little Jordan does is on accident. You know,
Yeah, she made an oath to do what she says to fix the problems, but she never made an oath not to send somebody else to investigate her.
exactly.
Yeah.
So now we switch to, we haven't seen these people in a little bit, of Sain and Pavara hunting for the Black Ajah in the tower. Any Yeah, the only thing to me that I want to point out, because it'll matter later, is I he does such a good job of making Pavara sympathetic, because she's a good red. She's the good Nazi. She's a good red. But she's still a very flawed person. When they give who is it? Zara, when they give her the oath rod and make her swear these oaths to be sure that she's Black Ajah, and then when they find out she's a spy sent from Saladar, and Pavara's on the edge of letting her die because she won't release her from this oath. She won't release her from this thing, and you see this interesting catch-22 in the oath rod of, you commanded her to follow your commands. You made her swear to that on the oath rod, and then you commanded her to do something contradictory. I mean, a true catch-22. You commanded her to say something that she firmly believes is a lie, and she is also bound not to tell a lie. And so there's a physical consequence. She's about to, like, have a seizure or suffocate to death or something. And Pavara has to be, like, yelled at by Sain to let her go. I mean, she's so vindictive. She's about to let her die. You know, if Sain wasn't there, you're left to think, yeah, she probably would have let her die, Pavara, if it had been up to her. And that's going to matter because she comes back up again later. It is more central in something that happens later. And so it's Jordan laying out, this is the kind of person this is. So keep that in mind. Boy.
Yeah, and what we learn instead is she's not black. She's a spy.
Yep. Which we had already learned about on the other side.
Yeah.
And now, but
on the other side, but importantly, a truth that couldn't be let out, even with the people who were using it as a cudgel.
But it also was a little while ago. I think that was Crown of Swords where Egwene learns about this. I think it was last book. And so I had kind of forgotten. I remember reading this the first time and going, oh yeah. Because I was wondering what it was leading up to. I was wondering what it was building to. And I had forgotten all about the spies the Saladar people sent out. And so it's a great tension building, and I'm curious if anyone else knew it. If you recall knowing it your first time through, going, she's one of the Saladar spies. I'm trying to decide if I want to go down this tangent or not. So this is kind of related to what we were talking about earlier when it comes why there's such a huge difference in women who self-identify as bisexual versus men who self-identify as bisexual.
So go back to Wednesday's episode, not Wednesday's that will show Friday episode.
So this is this is something that is really interesting, and why these characters are so real, and why before today's modern woke lunacy, Jordan was praised for his ability to write gender roles. So we bring up the as good as it gets Jack Nicholson quote to be snarky, but again, that's snarkiness in and that's someone who that Jack Nicholson character, we're told, has all these female fans and writes women so well, but we're never actually given an example. We have the example right here in front of us of, no, people said that, and you can go back and you can actually read it to see what they were talking about.
But no, Perrin spanked Fael, so he's horrible.
I hate you all. But one of the things you get when the women, the Aes Sedai, are together and talking amongst each other is when they talk about reds and potential reds. One of the things they'll say is, no, she won't be a red. She likes men. But when they talk about reds, it's not just that they don't like men, they hate them. I think that's why Jordan is so problematic now, because you have like jumped the shark with a rocket propelled motorcycle out of third and into fourth and now fifth wave, who knows what the hell feminism, and it's no longer about even the war of the sexes. It is about, full on misandry and genocide of all men, and that's why Pavara stands out. It's not, she doesn't necessarily like men, she just doesn't hate them, and that makes her an oddball amongst the Reds.
Yeah, which is funny because they attach it to the LGBTQ movement. Okay, so I work with athletes, and I work with people that work with athletes. I've known a lot of gay women. They'd love to hang out with dudes because they think of themselves as dudes. They're not gay because they hate men. They're gay because they like women. Man hating is a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
Man hating is something else. It has nothing to do with your sexual orientation. So looking at somebody and saying, "Oh, they're not attracted to men. They're going to be a red." No, man hating is usually a bad experience with a man, or the media telling you men are bad. One of those two things.
And what makes it work so well within the context of the White Tower and the other Ajahs in this collection of women is that, and again, where Jordan is problematic because he shines a light on this. Just because you're not a red, the red are the extremes, but that doesn't mean, oh, you don't hate men, so you must be what's the female equivalent of a simp? You must let men walk all over you. You must be cowed. You must be, no, all of these women are
typically on that dichotomy. You look at simps on one side and sluts on the other.
So
simps give up all their resources without getting laid, where sluts give up all of their layableness without actually demanding resources. Yeah.
So all of these Aes Sedai who aren't red are still very proud to prideful, somewhere in that spectrum, and very self-confident, and have absolutely no problems going toe to toe with or overpowering a man.
No, we're in the middle of the Elaida revolution with the hierarchy of media right now. The Barbie movie was made by Reds.
That's a great point. It's a good way to look at it. Oh, geez. Yeah. There you go. That's it.
Men do not deserve power. Men are horrible when they're in power. That's the whole theme of the movie.
Compare and contrast one of I think one of the best female, well, two of them back from the 70s and 80s. If you look at Ripley in the first and second Aliens movies, and you see her growth and progression there, that is a strong female character. Same with Linda Hamilton as in the first Terminator and the second Terminator. She's a very different character in the second Terminator because of what happens in the first Terminator. But she's not weak in the first Terminator.
Sarah
She's
Connor.
just Sarah Connor. She's just different.
Did you say
Same-
Hamilton? Sarah Hamilton?
Linda Hamilton is the
Oh,
actress's
Linda Hamilton.
name.
Okay.
I don't know why I brain farted on the character name because I remember I remember because in Aliens I could remember the character name and then I brain farted on Sigourney Weaver and then I vice versa it in Terminator. So yeah, so those aren't weak characters just because they don't hate men. And when they become even stronger, more militant, more assertive in the second movie, it's not because they hate men. It's because, no, damn it, this is the thing that needs to be done, and I'm going to do it, and I'm the one to get it done.
Or it's a self-reflection with Sarah Connor. It is a self-reflection of, yes, I was saved by a metal man. Or I was saved by a man. So excuse me, the first one, she was saved by the man. I was saved by a man. I can't rely on that all the time. So I need to make myself better. And then the metal man comes in to help her, but she's also badass on her own, and they do it together.
Well, which is why that first movie is so great and why I like it better than the second one, because she has to step up there at the end because Reese is so beat to hell that yeah, ultimately his sacrifice is what saves her in the end, but he wouldn't have made it without her. You know, so she had to start stepping up then. And then you see, you know, after 15 years of time or whatever it was has passed, this is what becomes of that. And that's where the attempted reboot failed, because there was no, that character was completely gone, as if she had never existed. And that's why Jordan is problematic, because he sees these spectrums. And so he's able to not only write the progression of a character, but then give you different characters within that arc. So you can see them at different times, as it were. All right. And then I think the Pavara and Sane stuff, and that's gonna be more and more that's gonna matter more down later, so we can move
it's
on.
a little tease here, but as we get into the later books, it's one of the best, I think, little bit of storyline going on, because then it almost gets a little dark. We thought we saw dark here with her just basically thinking of killing this person who's not answering correctly. But no, it gets really dark, because then they start getting into how deep and pervasive this problem has been for so long.
That's a good point.
The depth of the corruption.
No, yeah, that's a good point. And we referenced that before, that, you know, not trying to keep the politics out of the Wheel Time episodes, but one of our rants from both the right and the left is, dude, Trump wasn't the problem, he was a symptom. You know, both sides need to recognize that, or we're in big trouble. And that's, Elaida's not the problem. It's and that's part of where I think a Gawain story works and it doesn't work. You know, just leave it at that, because there'll be much more into it down the road. But that is where she is most effective as a character, is when she starts to point those kinds of things out. Of, look, Elaida may be the boogeyman here, but Elaida wouldn't have happened if it weren't for all these deep-seated problems. All right, and then we get to the thing I teased before of now I believe this was confirmed by Jordan a couple of times in Q&As, the extra bit. Did you know what that was right off the bat, or was there any confusion for you when he says sorry about the extra bit when he bonds her? And the extra bit is a kiss, like a big old kiss on the lips.
Oh, with Logain? Yeah, because he kind of puts in it's a little bit of Andrew Tatey, you know. He's semi manipulating them through this thing, which is his power kind of thing.
Well, I think it becomes clear in the next book because something is referenced there, but the extra bit is the kissing part. Is what Jordan said. But what I wasn't sure about though.
What do you expect after Elayne had been teasing him for months on the road because she was practicing her wares?
Poor guy.
He was probably freaking blue balled as well as stilled.
What I'm curious about, and Scott, I don't know if you ever saw any comments on this. I don't know if he ever explained the difference in the bond between what the Ashaman do to the Aes Sedai and what Aes Sedai typically do to warders, because there's no attempt to bend the bonded person to your will. He just says, stop that. And she does. So like you are automatically completely obedient.
Well, it's probably just an homage to the difference between men and women. If we want to assert our authority, we do it through strength and power. Whereas if a woman wants to assert her authority, she does it through subtle nudging in a way. And both of them are just as effective. But they're slightly different in strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And how it looks.
All right. Well, let's pause there because I'm old and I need to refill my beverage, and then we'll push on through to the end.
All right, because we get to Min now, and pretty much Min ran till the end now. Oh, and then some Perrin and Fael.
All right. So now on to the climax giggity of the book, and this is an interesting climax to me, and I have read some complaints about it, but to me this isn't where I find the book weak. It's really all the stuff in the middle. But much like he usually does, it's like every chapter is a different perspective but rather than what typically has happened in the previous books, it isn't like 4 different stories all coming together. There's not a ton of action in it, and the storylines never really come together because you've got Rand and Min, and in Karheen, and then you have the chapter 28 Crimson Thorn. You have Nynaeve and Egwene on their way
Elayne.
to Camelin. What did I say?
Egwene.
Yeah, that's not right at all. You have Nynaeve and Elayne on their way to Camelin, and then you have Perrin and what's going on over there. So it's interesting to me in
which is probably why
style.
we get this last weird chapter at the end that's like 3 paragraphs, and it's just like all these rumors floated abound. You decide what's true from what you read before.
Yeah. Well, and that's how he typically ends the books, in much the same way that he always begins the books, in the same way with the Wind. And I like that, and I like his spin on that because he got his degree in physics, and so you can see that in a lot of his writing. But he was also a major history buff. And so one of the things about history is, and this is something, so you kind of learn early on of primary sources. You need to go to the primary sources. And that's like your first advanced level, is learning how to go to the primary sources and use primary sources. But then at some point you have to learn that, people lie. People are wrong. People are misled. So the primary sources aren't necessarily the authoritative sources. You've got to figure things out. So I kind of always liked
an eyewitness is one of the worst evidence you can have anyways.
So I always liked that little spin at the end of, well, yes, you, the reader, know the truth because you were seeing it as it happened, but that doesn't mean that the world is going to move in that direction. Anyway, so let's kind of zip through here and see what I know you said you had a couple of notes here. So chapter 27, the bargain. There's some interesting things that happen here as Rand finally comes back to Karheen. He's been gone. He's been gone since he went after Samael. And so people aren't happy. You know, Katsawin is annoyed that he's been gone this long. The maidens are pissed and take it out on him. Min needs to be comforted. And then of course you just have all the day-to-day politics. So what do you want to focus in on and talk about in this chapter here?
Well, first of all, this is where Jordan detaches from reality a little bit. The amount of snoo that Rand gets with only having, impregnating one girl in the entire next part of the that we haven't gotten to yet, is astounding. Unless Min is like barren, then
No, that's a good point, because there's going to be so much snoo. Has it already happened yet? But at one point, I don't remember if it's a Gawain or Perrin or one of them is like having kind of a dream thing and seeing. No, it's okay. I remember where it is. I'll point it out later.
Okay.
I think it's Matt that does it.
Matt's gotten a lot of snoo too, but Dylan, she might have been through menopause already. We don't know exactly her age at that point. So, and everything else was just mostly canoodling. So, well, Melindra was definite snoo, but
we actually do know from some historical records that there were apparently some the ancient Egyptians are the most renowned for this, I believe, of having had a concoction that was, according to the sources, 100% effective in preventing conception.
Yeah, but all the kings who wrote the histories probably just deleted any woman that got pregnant after taking the concoction.
Yeah.
But and all my athletes are like, we would just pull out. I'm like, yeah. And
sure.
I've had athletes retire because baby mama just ruined their life. So it's yeah.
Yeah, sure thing, buddy. Yeah. So anyway, before they can get to the snoo, he gets beat up. Well, before we even get to that, I do like that the introduction to this to Rand's conclusion here is Min sitting here, trying to figure out Herod Fell's book. It reminds me of when I was in.
It's one of the little nuggets I wish we had gotten just a hair more interaction with her and Herod Fell in real time. Because maybe just like him like explaining a thesis to her, and Rand just kind of
Rand doesn't get it, and then Min kind of says something that, oh yeah, no, that's right, yeah.
And so that would have been a nice little half a chapter or something earlier.
Yeah, Min trying to figure out Herod Fell always reminds me of, I don't remember if I was in 7th or 8th grade when I tried to read the Silmarillion, and oh boy, that hurt my head.
Yeah, well, the way he could have done it too would have been like Herod Fell's thoughts as like Perrin dreams and Egwene dreams and Corinthian cycle and all of these other things that we're getting clues of what is supposed to happen. And it could have been a paragraph where even he could have put it in the bold words that he does when it's a Perrin dream and he sees something in the skyline. It could have been, these are my thoughts on this, and I think this and maybe even way early on, like a something Ishi said, and then Herod Fell said later, because remember they're both philosophers, and we could have tried to put that together as fans, and it could have been something that you're supposed to figure out going forward, and that would have been fun, and it would have brought Min into the fold a little bit more completely. Like right now we get her perspective a lot, and she's like the lover, but at the same time Elayne's the only one of the three that you get fully brought into the fold of main characters. Avienda, you realistically only get like 10 perspectives of hers throughout the whole series.
Yeah.
And like 2 of those are at the end where her feet burn off. I'm sorry,
She-
spoilers.
She's majorly important, and yet she's hard to get your head around, because so much of what you see of her, especially early on, it's all from Rand's point of view, and she's openly hostile to him, and you don't know why, because you very rarely get her point of view.
Mhm. And they're supposed to represent different parts of things that he needs, just like Matt and Perrin are, but Matt and Perrin are fleshed out.
Yeah. All right, so one thing I wanted, so this is page 600 in the paperback. This is before the Schnoo or attempted Schnoo. And this is Rand losing his temper over the bargain, the title of this chapter, that Morana and Rafaela managed to get out of the Sea Folk after he left them.
And as we know from Elayne and Nynaeve's bargain, Morana does a damn good job against the Sea Folk.
And what's interesting to me, and I hadn't really thought of before, is that until we kind of started talking about things in the way we were talking about them here, I think it's interesting and telling and not an accident that Morana stands up to him here. Because Morana, remember, we've mentioned her before as one of the first to actually get it. One of the first, as I kind of said in our previous episode, trying not to get too political, she knows what time it is. Remember in Lord of Chaos, she's the one that has that outburst of, you don't get it. You other Aes Sedai are acting as if things are the way they have always been, and they are not.
So, yeah, well, the other M on the other side with the rebels was Marilil. And I talked about her in the last episode. As she's, remember, the outcasts are the ones that are getting hammered on because they're the ones that understand that there's something more that needs to be done.
So I think Morana getting it is one besides her experience, her decades of experience, why she was able to come out a lot better than Nynaeve and Elayne. But then also I think it's an important point that Jordan is showing us standing up to him here, when so many, especially the ones that have sworn fealty to him, are cowed by his outbursts and his his temper, his flares and temper. And I think that was on purpose, and it was because of that. All right, then speaking of standing up to him, if you don't have anything else, then we get to the end with Cadsuane. And we talked about this in spoilers a little bit last time. This conversation he has with Cadsuane, where she makes the revelation about Kalendor and how it's flawed.
Yeah, because I'd forgotten the fact that you needed a woman guiding the sword.
Yeah, because otherwise the buffer's not right, and it will fry the man. It'll make you extra crazy.
Which makes you wonder if there's some symbolism there, because remember I brought up in an episode, I don't remember if it was Wheel of Time or Social, where when we say there behind every great man there's a great woman, we mean different things.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is I think the kind of metaphorically, sometimes great men push too far forward, and they need that person to hold them back a little bit.
That's a good way, because I've talked about this
and
before.
Which we're talking metaphor, we got Min right here,
yes,
sliding into that role.
I've used the lion. I really like the lions as an analogy, the male lion. Because if it was up to us, we would just eat screw. Exactly. Are you gonna help me with dinner? Are you kidding me? But I think that's a good point, that you need that the woman to get you moving, to get you going, but then you also need them on the other side, that they bookend you, properly understood, because left to our own devices, we're either going to do nothing or we're going to go way too far.
Yeah, we're going to do all the things.
We are going to do all the things. All right, so do you have any more thoughts about Cadsuane or this chapter before we get to here?
No, just the way she ends it with
oh yeah.
You must, if you ask nicely and you apologize, and he's like, what? and we see kind of where that goes as.
Yeah. Well, before that, something that kind of jumped out at me because we, just read and spent several weeks talking about New Spring. Uh, to me, that this tidbit is very interesting when she's talking about Kalendor. Um, I went rummaging some years ago when I first had the suspicion you might be suckling at your mother's breast. Just before I decided to go back into retirement. Babes are messy things, and I could not see how to find you before you stopped dripping at one end or the other. So I like the way her insulting manner to keep him off guard, but that kind of jumped out at me and made me go, that's interesting. It made me wonder, was Cadsuin one of the Emerald Seekers? Because we knew about some of them, and the Black Ajah figured out who they were and killed them. Was Cadsuin one of them, and she somehow managed to evade or survive the Black Ajah? Or did she figure it out on her own because she's that badass?
I'm going to say she figured out on her own, because even in New Spring, you get the impression that she's not beholden to the tower. She just kind of, everybody's like, oh, Cadsuin doing Cadsuin things,
Yeah. Anyway, random thought. So chapter 28.
Well, no, I thought the last thing on this chapter, I don't think it was an accident that Rand's thoughts go to Selene and Lanfear at the end, the very last paragraph. He could hear a dead woman's voice. You could challenge the creator.
Yep. Yeah, we'll have more on that of Rand's state of mind in the next book.
Okay, I just reread this earlier this afternoon as I was prepping for this Crimson Thorn, and this is where Jordan, he writes good, and you get the feels going, because what happens here in this chapter, I actually started kind of having to wipe some redness around the eyes.
Yeah, Adelaide and Van Dien are such great minor characters, and then we'll get there when we get there, but this is one of our gripes about the end of the book is when people start dropping like flies and you don't get that moment. Well, you get the moment here. And again, these are very minor characters. We saw them very briefly in the Great Haunt, and then they didn't come back in until Fires of Heaven or Lord of Chaos. I don't even remember. And then they've played a role in Nynaeve and Elayne's storyline here, and he makes it very personal and very real. What happens here,
even though you can speculate about who the crook is, you can still gather that emotion of even I don't want to spoil it here. Even if the person who did the bad thing was the one who was distraught, well, yeah, it's her sister, her twin sister of 300 years ish.
Oh yeah, and that was one of the major WTF things in the forums back in the day before it was known, is all right, so who was the culprit? And the sister was one of the culprits. I mean, you had to think that, because you're talking about some very dark forces here, and could she have done that and then given this performance? But to your point, and one of the counterpoints to that was,
but it doesn't have to be a performance.
It doesn't have to be a performance. I mean, this is their twin freaking sister.
It could be the I held it back, and in the moment where the performance was convenient, it all came out of the real emotion behind it.
Yeah. The only other thought I had on this chapter is I like the way he frames it. So he ends it there with that little scene of David Hanlon and this
one of my favorite bad guys. Actually.
So
yeah.
I mean, I like what he's telling you there. Whether you noticed it or not, your brain noticed it. Of he's setting up the stakes. He's setting up the danger by letting you know there are dark friends in their midst, and there are more where they're going. So he's just letting you know that things are going to get and stay dangerous for Elayne and Nynaeve.
And not only dark friends the coming forward, but dark friends that are powerful enough that they just killed Boars. And Boars has been one of the major baddies for up until this point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
They killed Boars with whiskey or brandy.
Yeah. All right. So
one of the annoying Aes Sedai things with the blacks and his doing names though is, was it Phalion is the black and Phaloin is the girl with Egwene that is also raised with Theodrin. So this is one of the spots where, okay, so he's got a million characters, but you gotta like the ones that we have to pay attention to, you gotta give them different names. That they're enough different that it's easy to like Matt and Perrin. How much more distinct can you get? You could have given me a different name for.
all right. So
A Cup of Sleep.
all right. So this is an interesting chapter here. I think this chapter, just these first few pages here, really typifies what I was talking about how there's not a lot of action here, but there's a lot of things happening in this climax, much like in previous books that culminated in a big fight, whether it be, against Ravine with Nynaeve coming through the dream world and those storylines coming together and all that. And here, just in these first few pages of A Cup of Sleep, you've got Rand throwing a tantrum because of what is it? Because of all right, Elayne's finally in Camelin and she took down all his banners. And now he's mad. But he's not mad because he said so. So I like the deflection here with Min. This is why she's so great, because we know that, okay, one, no, she really truly does care for Rand. She also knows that she has to share him. She's already had this conversation with Elayne. So this can't be easy for her, but I like the way she deflects and kind of makes a joke of it, of, the Dragon Reborn is sulking because he thinks this woman is mad at him. She's filling the Matt role here of he needs this because he needs someone to kind of push him and say, go to her, stop sitting there in your own mind, making up worse and worst case scenarios. Just go to her. Just talk this out.
Well, except this is where she's right and wrong, because she's right in that he needs to quit making a big deal about it. But Crossex's mind reading, he wanted her to have the throne and all of those things, but she tore down his banners, and he's like, but also it has to be aligned with us.
Well, and she doesn't really doesn't really understand the two letters she sent him of, we never see the letters, but as he puts it, just all this flowery I love yous. And then the second one is like cold and distant and you're an a-hole.
And what both of them don't get, that we got in the last chapter, is that was necessary for her to do it the right way. Mm. She's thinking of it as, it's not a thing against you. It's just, and he's thinking, oh, well, she's not going to be aligned with me. She's made it clear that she wants nothing to do with me. And
this is the go to her and figure this out part of it, though, where Min is right, even if she doesn't know exactly why, because Rand is thinking, well, I just said the throne is hers and she just has to go take it. And Elayne knows better of, no, that's not the way Andorans work. I can't just take it from you. They'll never accept me. I have to earn this. And he doesn't get it. So, but then we get whipsawed here after a few pages, where Cerelia comes in with the with the Aes Sedai who were Datsang, the ones from the Tower Emissary, who are now asking to pledge fealty to him in the same way that the Saladar Aes Sedai did. And I really, Cerelia is such a great character, and you get a lot of Giotto here of the context clues are of how this works. Of she's stern, she's not quite sure about this, and especially she's not quite sure about these Aes Sedai, but you were the one who was wronged, so this is up to you. Have they somehow managed to atone for the unatonable? And so it is interesting to see,
which is an interesting thought, because now we go into Giotto. She does state that it's something that can't be atoned for, and that seems like a silly belief, because everything should be able to be atoned for, or else there's nothing to atonement.
Mm-hmm. I really like the way Jordan writes this, and I wish that the live action series were being made by competent people, because this is what I was talking about at the very beginning with the performance of Moiraine there, and comparing it to Shatner in Wrath of Khan, is that he is very scarred by his experience there. We have seen it. Min has talked about it, even if Rand won't. And yet he's pacing back and forth like a caged animal. He's angry. He's frustrated because this is, very personal. His relationship with Elayne, very personal. But then when Cerelia comes in, he becomes very cool. Even though that, so this is 637 on the paperback. Rand took Cerelia's announcement coolly on the surface. He rubbed his hands together slowly, then thoughtfully examined the herons branded on his palms. He examined each of those Aes Sedai faces in turn. Finally, he focused on Arian. Why? He asked her in a mild voice. I killed 2 of your warders. Why? Min winced. Rand was many things, but seldom mild. And Arian was one of the few who had beaten him more than once. So I like the turn here, because it's doing at least 2 things here. Is one, Jordan is showing us, like, demonstrating just factually, Rand isn't completely stable, because you're not an entirely stable person if your emotions swing that wildly, that quickly. And so he goes from, frustrated teenage love affair to, stroking his beard almost supervillain like. Because as Min said, he ran as many things. He is not mild. This is creepy, even to Min. And he knows that, or she knows that he's probably kind of setting them up here. What she does as the scene goes down, and he says, "Would you be locked in a box and beaten like I was?" And that's where his temper starts to come out a little bit of, oh, you're saying these things. You're saying that you'll do anything. All right, fine. Let's lock you in a box and beat you twice a day. Will you do that?
And they said they would. And he still didn't believe them.
Mm-hmm.
Until Min piped up.
Yeah.
That she had a viewing.
And that's the other reason I love this scene is Min so desperately hoping, squinting, even though she knows that's not how it works, but she's just almost willing herself to see something that will help Rand, because she knows how sensitive this subject is to him. She knows how badly things could go here if Rand turns down this, or if he follows through on his threats of, well, let's lock him in a box and beat him. But she knows what that would do to him, because she knows the list that's in his head. He might actually do that in the state that he's in, but that doesn't mean he would do it without it further scarring him.
Mm-hmm. An interesting point that we need to look for as we go forward, because having read them all, I know who's Dark Friend and who's not, or I know who's absolutely a Dark Friend amongst these 5, but there's a little ambiguity on some others. And after they had sworn the oath, remember we talked about Sheriam earlier being happy after she swore her oath because she doesn't have to follow it. Only Nesun or Nesune, who whatever you pronounce it, looked surprised at the electricity that in which they happened to obey. Why did it bring her up specifically? Was she the only one that obeyed despite her own will? Or was she surprised because she was a tick behind everybody else on obeying and had to get up and do it to fake it? That's the question there.
Interesting. Might put a pin in that for some spoiler talk, because that is there is some fun to that. All right. All right, and then the actual action happens, which is this attempted assassination against Rand, and all the shenanigans that happened from that.
And this was one of the more mundane fight scenes for me. It was almost a little unbelievable the way it went down.
For me, it wasn't unbelievable, but I remember being slightly confused the first time I read it, because it was you're expecting, we had we had Duma as well, and then we had the fight against Samael in Ilion that then goes to Arid Hole, and we've had some big, climactic battles here in these books, and it was a little confusing because wait, that's it?
Yeah.
And I had to go
and
back
not only that, when we see the ladies fighting with the power, like Nynaeve and Moghedian and etc., it's so much more detailed in their battle with the power. Whereas with Rand and these guys, it's like I threw fireballs this direction and something happened, and I don't know if I heard anything, but
I wonder if he did that on purpose as a further example of the nature of men and women
well, except we get from Ravin in Rand's fight.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
We get a very intricate back and forth play of the power.
But I think in kind of in hindsight, as I thought about it and read it more, I didn't mind it as much because in today's terms, it kind of occurred to me that, well, no, if you have someone that really knows what they're doing, that this is like the drone strike of the Wheel of Time, the with the power is boom, just drop the bomb and then get out of the way, and it either worked or it didn't.
Well, I'm talking about afterwards when Deshiva was discovered and they started fighting back and forth.
Oh, but that I think was them. Oh crap, let's get the hell out of here. I think that's why it was so anticlimactic, because they were thinking that this was going to be an assassination, and now they're arguing. The conspirators are arguing with each other. Did we get him or not? And oh, we didn't get him. We got to get the hell out of here. Because I mean, that was the whole point. Is it was an assassination because they knew they probably couldn't take Rand in a stand-up fight.
And then we get poor Fedwin Moore.
Yeah, and then the cup of sleep. What are your thoughts on the ending here? Because there are a couple of interesting things that happen in those last couple of pages.
I think the best thing about it was you got it from Min's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we got it from Rand's perspective, we would have got too much.
Yes. I like that Time kind of gives Rand, kind of reevaluates Rand, and that you're left, there's a part of you that's like, Yeah, because the good guy just like impressed and kind of made the bad guy stand back a second, and then you realized, oh wait, Taim kind of has more respect for Rand now. That's probably not a good thing. Uh-oh, where are we going here? Uh, and then of course the other little tidbit there right at the very end is Taim being genuinely surprised that Dashiva was amongst the conspirators. So just a little nugget there to leave you um there. And then of course really putting a final point on the whole theme of this of the dragon needs to know laughter and tears. You can cry, Rand al'Thor. You won't melt if you cry. I don't have time for tears either, man, he said gently. Sometimes the hounds catch the wolf and wish they hadn't. Sometimes he turns on them or waits in ambush. But first, the wolf has to run. So it all makes perfect sense in his head.
And then we go to Perrin.
And then we go to Perrin.
No, you just, it's no accident. The wolf, da, 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 the wolf, the wolf, the wolf.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Perrin. And this is where the schlog really starts.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say about this chapter because so much of it is, I mean, like we've already complained about the slog.
Well, okay, so here's my first thoughts about it is we had so much character development with Perrin through book 4 with his relationship with Fael, and then we dumped it for the first part of this book, and then we got it all back in one foul swoop of Elias giving him advice. And it was righting the ship, but we had to have those other chapters, so we couldn't have that yet. But then Perrin's thoughts on grudgingly, it still did not seem right taking advice about his wife from another man. That's like giving somebody parenting advice about their children. It's people get a little bit uptight about taking that kind of advice.
Mm-hmm. And just kind of adding to the frustration of why is Perrin acting dumb. When so the first half of this chapter is him meeting with Massima, and I mean, seeing what he already should have known, which was that Massima's batshit crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And cannot be reasoned with because that's kind of the definition of crazy.
Well, and I remember even his thoughts going into the town about possibly frightening Massima and and I'm like, we got to remember who Massima was. He was a freaking badass. He was one of the elite of Shinaran warriors.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just that he's crazy that he's not afraid. He's not afraid also because he's competent.
Yeah. And he was already something of a fanatic then. So then, yeah, his fanaticism has just been turned and focused on something even more tangible.
Well, and even understandably so, because he was there at Falme.
Mm-hmm.
He saw visions in the sky. He saw the Dragon Reborn fighting Ishamael in the sky.
And the heroes come back from the grave to answer the horn, fighting the Sanshin. And yeah.
And add to things that are in this channel, he saw the Sanshin wielding power, the one power, as an in opposition to the dragon and being defeated.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Yeah, moving on. So then the next chunk is Fael getting captured, and it's annoying. It would probably be less, and this is where some more vigorous editing maybe could have come into play to help the series as a whole. Is I feel like if he was always building to this, we didn't need as much Shido earlier, because we've already seen the way they are taking Guy Shane and how it's an abomination. And it's, I mean, look, obviously Bane and Chiat are going to speak up for their friend, even though, but they have to know it's useless because they've already seen it. They already know what the Shido is doing. We've already seen it.
Well, not only that, with this is one of the flaws of the way he wrote Jia. If they're not following G, then there's no Toe. And it should have already been like this whole thing the Shido are doing is excluded from all of this.
Yep. All right. And then Egwene gets to be Little Miss General and lead them through the ginormous gateway. And then chapter 31 is just, you know, stories and rumors and playing the telephone game. All right. Any other thoughts before we move on to spoilers and comments?
No, there was something you said earlier about Elaida, and it picked something in my head about this last chapter with Egwene, Ramonda and Elayne, and Egwene's thoughts that the only reason she has the advantage she has is because of this dichotomy within the hall. And that's actually the same for Elaida. Because there was this divide, and realistically the whole tower divide, that's the only reason Elaida has power to begin with. So that's exactly how tyrants take power. And Egwene just continues that as we go forward.
Yeah, I want to say that we get a break from her. I think there's not much in Winter's Heart with Egwene's storyline.
Probably why
I
you
know
liked it.
I know there's one of those that there's a big break from Egwene, and then it goes back to her either in Crossroads or A Knife of Dreams. I don't remember
Well,
which.
unfortunately, we get a big break from her and then get her with Gawain. Oh.
Yep. Well, so the only spoilery thing, go away, because this is a big spoilery thing, is I was looking up when you mentioned that Nessun Baraha.
Because Ezra was a dark friend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I think is happening here is, and we saw a little bit of this with her in that prologue, Varen used compulsion on them. So that's how these dark friends are able, these Black Ajah are able to convince themselves that swearing fealty furthers the cause of the dark. But then also Varen is able, because we know, spoilers, we know that Varen knows who the Black is. So she knows when she is manipulating and using compulsion on the Black. So she must frame it in a way that will convince the Black sisters that
they're furthering the cause of
you have to give your all to Rand. You have to be his servant in order to ultimately achieve, the Dark One's aims. So that to me is one of the more interesting bits, and you'll see it here and there because he clues you kind of back in here. I think you may get one of these at the end. Yeah, at the one of these, I don't remember which one of these that we just saw here, is there at Arid Hole when he's doing the cleansing.
That's right. That's why I knew that's why I could remember she was.
You get her point of view of, oh, it's just an Ashaman, I can kill him. And so she nukes him.
Yeah, which is the other spoiler because it's Deshiva.
Yeah.
Which is a weird end for him because he's a Forsaken. But
it's kind of ignominious, but I kind of think it fits for him because he's kind of such a sleazy, squirrely character.
Yeah. But that's the other spoiler from the book is you're like is Taim, because it's two-part. Taim being surprised he was there, But it's also more than that, because he was surprised he was there. You can infer because he sent the others.
Mm-hmm.
But he's surprised he was there because I didn't know that this guy was some sort of powerful guy too that I should be thinking about. And not only is he powerful, but he's also bad, and he had influence over my guys.
Mm-hmm.
And Taim being a dark friend, he needs to be aware of who has influence over his guys, because obviously they're high on the ladder too. And who the heck is high enough to compete with me?
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other thoughts? There's only one comment from last time.
What was the comment?
All right. Egwene, because of her training and experience, had a chance to become a totally new kind of Aes Sedai. Not a recluse in an ivory tower, but an Aes Sedai living in the world. Instead, she chooses to reinforce the traditional methods of the Aes Sedai, or, in my opinion, selling out. That just gave me a thought. So I think you're right and wrong there, Scott, because Egwene has to reinforce the traditional methods, but she has to kind of get the Aes Sedai back to first principles, back to, this is going to get a little political, but something I was thinking when we were recording earlier, and I didn't say, is one of the failings of the conservative movement over the past few decades is continuing to point to the Constitution, the founders. Okay, but why? You can't just throw those things out there as sound bites. You have to say why those documents matter, why those people are worthy of, respect and study. And so much of what the tower has become was the tower for its own sake, tradition for its own sake, not the why. So Egwene, and this is super major spoiler, and I hadn't really thought of it in these terms before until Scott made that point of Egwene isn't of the tower, so you would think that she would kind of break it, and instead she reforges it. But I think that's why she's able to reforge it, because she's the outsider looking in. She has respect for the tower. She wanted to join the tower, but she isn't corrupted by it. But what I think is interesting, and I hadn't really thought of in these terms before, is that the person you're talking about, Scott, is her successor. It's Cadsuane, who's never in the tower and hates the tower. So after Egwene has reforged it, after she's gotten rid of the dark elements and brought everyone back together, now, and this is where we can only imagine, and I wish we would have gotten some more of Jordan's, fourth age tales, is what now does Cadsuane do? Because she is that person. She's the person who never liked the politics, never liked the tower itself as a structure.
So what you're saying is Egwene had to die.
Yeah. I mean, there is a kind of poetry and a symmetry there.
That was a little tongue in cheek, but at the same time, because she had to go the other route of reuniting everything, she couldn't turn face and go the direction that it needed to go after that, because then it would have been hypocritical. But having righted everything, and then Cadsuane coming in and saying, okay, now that you're all back together, here's all the shit we need to reform, is a different approach, because now that it's not the same person doing that. So Egwene had to die.
And not only die, but then martyring herself. So she dies a martyr. You can assume she is going to be held up as the greatest Amarillan, even though she only served for a very short time, not just because of what she did when she's alive, but, JFK is thought of so fondly in large part because he was assassinated. His presidency wasn't that great, but
and there was the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Yeah, there
was that.
There were some goods and there were some bads, but you're going to get a lot of sympathy when you're assassinated, and especially by the enemy, by this silly little communist, supposedly. But that's going to give you extra cachet going forward. So yeah, to your point, no, in order for the White Tower to grow moving forward, she had to die on top. She had to go out on top.
I mean, if I was on bottom, if I died too, that's
Whichever, I'm fine.
I mean,
Whatever.
I just need to have a note in my wallet that if I go out that way, then don't be sad, woman. That's how I wanted to go.
Yep.
And if they're looking in my wallet, it's probably the wrong woman.
Scruffy gonna die like Scruffy lived. All right. Well, that's all I got. And that wraps up Path of Daggers. And we'll see when what is the actual date for this first awful episode?
Oh, that I don't know. I heard
actually
September.
Yeah, I remember reading September the last time I looked.
I'm looking if it's in the description of the thing I just said.
Ugh. All these September 1st. Yeah, Wheel of Time Season 2 will premiere on Amazon's Prime Video this year on September 1st.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That's the first line of the freaking thing. I skipped over it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got a month to get our mind right.
All right, we should be able to do that and then die a slow and painful death watching season 2.
Yeah, and I guess they're going to do again where it's one episode at a time. So
yeah, that's what they've been
we'll
doing.
do is we'll just do an episode recap and a book section on the same day.
We should do some projections too, because we did that with the first season, and it was sad how many of them came true. Even when we weren't specific, even just the general stuff of, oh, yeah, that's exactly what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and in our next regular episode, speaking of projections, it's almost NFL football time.
Yeah, I guess it is.
So I need to get our fantasy league up and running, and we need to. Your Cowboys are going to suck. That's just the long and short of it. Yeah,
it's not my fault. I can't root for the Texans unless they change their name to what it should be. And the jerseys.
What's that?
Go back. Oilers. They should be the Oilers, and they should have the. I know that is so stupid to me. That is so. I hate that the NFL does that. That team in Tennessee is not the Oilers,
but it's the same owner, and he refuses to release the rights. That's the thing. Yeah. It has nothing to do with it being in Tennessee and everybody respecting that. It's the owner. He flips off Houston fans when they come to Tennessee.
It boggles my mind that the league has so much power in so many other ways, and they can't or won't do anything about this. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's trademark. They can't do the Oilers, and they can't have the baby blue. They can't have the yeah. I actually gave my old Oilers jacket to my Tennessee friend because I said, this is your franchise. And he wears it to every game he goes to. So
but they'll threaten the trademark of the Redskins because that's wrong. It's wrong think.
Well, your MLB is not innocent of that either.
Bring back Chief Guardians, you jerks. God, that's so stupid.
Guardians and Commanders. It's almost like the same marketing company did both of them.
I've got a great name for your sports ball team. That's who came up with those names. Yeah, someone who likes the sports ball.
The sports ball, yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go to sleep because I'm tired. And I'm old.
I'm about there.
And I've been driving all day. So we will see y'all next time.